as I said just before the news break, I've had 5 injections in my eyeball. It's like Clockwork Orange. Thankfully, once again, it doesn't hurt. Your eye is numbed. There is a little pressure, and it's very quick. And thankfully, this condition with I guess I have a vein that's leaking in my eye, and there's an injection that hopefully treats this. And so, but the funny thing is that when he told me he had to give me the shot in the eye, you know, it sounded horrendous. And I'm thinking, he says, well, you know, we're gonna numb it. Well, of course. But, okay, here's what I was thinking about as I sat in the chair. When you go to the dentist and they give you a shot in your gum, to Novocaine, to numb your gum, they wait a couple of minutes and they come back and they say, how does it feel? And you could feel your gum actually getting numbed, and it feels heavy, and your cheek feels numb. And then he comes by with a little pointer, you know, a little pin, and says, can you feel this? And you say, yeah. And he says, okay, I'll give you a little more. Or, no, I don't feel anything. Oh, great. We'll start drilling. Well, folks, think about this. How do you test if your eye is numb? You can't. And then, you know, at least when the dentist comes with that Novocaine shot, it's a shot. Okay, it's a needle. It looks substantial. You know, they numb your eye. They put 2 drops in it. I'm like, what if these drops aren't working? You know how you're going to know that my eye isn't numb? When he puts the needle in it and I jump out of the chair screaming. But thankfully that hasn't happened. And the sad part of this whole thing with the eye is I've had 5 shots in my eyeball, and sadly, I'm getting used to it. And that's not something you want to get used to. You don't want to get used to getting a shot in the eyeball. So anyway, then I fell off the stage, and I partially tore my Achilles tendon, and now I have a bone spur in my other foot. I'm going to physical therapy. I hate to say it, but there's 2 good things. I officiated my godson Patrick's wedding, which is a great honor and a great thing. So that was great. And I celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary, which was also a great event. So this year was not a complete loss, but this health stuff, I used to be Mr. Health. I was always healthy. Now I'm the biggest hypochondriac in the world. I mean, if I feel something on my side, I think I've got a tumor. I think I've got tumors everywhere now. I'm just paranoid. So 2015 can't leave quick enough. So I'm going to give my 2015 a D. Yeah, sorry. I got to give it a D. 2016 can't come quick enough. But who can come quick enough is local sports reporter and play-by-play man, Mark Vasko. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good, Jim. How about you?
Well, I'll tell you, you are a trooper, because give the listeners a little recap of what your day was like today.
Well, again, it's just work, so I didn't know I had to put a needle in my eye. So after hearing your story, I'm doing much better than I thought I was.
Yeah, everybody's year has to be a B compared to mine.
Well, I broadcast basketball in the winter now for a couple of different schools, the men and the women. I do Lewis University out in Romeoville, Division II, and Benedictine University, Division III out in Lisle. So that's 4 teams between the men and the women, so it's about 80 or 90 games of winter. So in the winter, I'm really busy, which is fine. But I did a Lewis University doubleheader and then drove home and mainlined some coffee, and I'm here with you. But I do them all by myself, so I basically did 5.5 hours of the pre-games, the half-times, the play-by-plays, all the.
So you're color and play-by-play.
So I do both jobs.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time and coming on with us, because you certainly had a full day's work. Your wife can't complain about you today.
No, not today. Most days, but not today.
Not today. And here you are just having some fun with me, so I really appreciate you taking the time, because I wanted to get you on to talk about some of the – today's show is sort of 2015 a rear view. And so I wanted to recap some of the sports stories because, as I said, not only was 2015 a tough year nationally and internationally with terrorism and ISIS and shootings and and all this just kind of bad news almost every other week. But in Chicago certainly has had its share of tough news this year. But surprisingly, amidst all that bad news, in Chicago at least, sports was a huge thumbs up in 2015.
Right. Well, and for a team like the Cubs, and for instance, you play their little theme song there to get come out of the break.
Yeah.
No one thought that season was going to be the season that it was. I didn't.
I predicted the Cubs. I mean, as I said, not every team did well, but we won a Stanley Cup with the third in 6 years with the Blackhawks in June, and then we had the Cubs, as you said, surprising, I'm sure, even themselves. There's no way that Theo Epstein thought they were going to win 97 games this year. I don't care what he said. There's no way he thought that. He may have said that.
They were a year ahead of schedule.
Without a doubt. I predicted the Cubs. Don't forget, the year before the Cubs had lost 89. And
Absolutely.
Certainly they got better. But I was saying, gang, if they win 81, that's if they're 500, that's a good season. And for them to have won 97, which would have put them in first place in any other division in baseball, not just in the National League, but in baseball. And then, of course, and their great ascent this season, spelled out later with Madden winning Manager of the Year, Arrieta winning the Cy Young, and Chris Bryant, the newly engaged Chris Bryant, I might add,
right,
winning Rookie of the Year. But it's been amazing how Chicago, for the most part, is always a downer sports thing. And if it wasn't for the good news in sports, this wouldn't have been a fun place to be around this year in Chicago.
You aren't kidding. Well, and again, for people who were disappointed in the Cubs' playoff run, they said they were one starting pitcher shy. Well, because they didn't think they needed the starting pitcher this year.
No, I mean, certainly, getting Madden was a huge boost, and certainly, Lester. But no one expected Arrieta to just pitch out of his mind.
Right.
His ERA was ridiculous, in the words of a Dave Kaplan. But it was silly. It was not even. It was almost like it wasn't real. I would compare
second half ERA ever.
Yeah, I would compare his second half of the season, if you remember, back in '84, which not surprisingly was another successful winning season for the Cubs, the way that Rick Sutcliffe was.
Yeah.
Remember, he was 16-1.
Absolutely.
In the second half, that was crazy, and that was one of the reasons that they were so good. But when you look at the Cubs now, they made some really great trades over the last couple of months here. I would have to say, don't you think the Cubs have to be one of the main contenders, if not a favorite, to win the World Series?
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that crazy we're saying that without even laughing?
I know. It seems like fiction.
It is nuts. And I tell you, I was, nobody expected. I don't think anyone expected the Blackhawks to win a Stanley Cup. They're certainly one of the best teams, one of the elite teams. They have some of the best players in all of hockey. But they lost the year before to Los Angeles, and there's no guarantees in hockey.
Oh no. And
they just came alive in those playoffs, unbelievably.
Well, which is why I'm actually not too worried about them now either. It's almost like, because they have the shortest off season of anybody.
That's true.
Because they always go so deep in the playoffs now.
And they do seem to become a different team in the playoffs.
So in a weird way, they almost get their rest with these off nights that they have. It's almost like they turn it on when they need to. Which, in a weird way, is fine with me, because I know in the playoffs they're going to be ready.
Yeah, I just think that the season in hockey, you certainly have to play well enough to make the playoffs. But if you're the Blackhawks, I would say for the next, don't you think? Taves and Kane are 26, 27 years old?
Right.
I would say they still have to be contenders until those guys are in their early 30s. Wouldn't you say?
There's no doubt. Think of all the games that they've played.
Yeah.
Then throw in the Olympics.
Right. The playoffs.
Then they always go to the final round if they don't win it. It's just So these are long seasons. So, yeah, they have some duds or whatever, but it doesn't bother me because I know they can flip the switch. Like, not a lot of teams can.
Right.
But I know that they will. I don't, it doesn't matter to me how many games they lose. Everybody makes the playoffs, and they're good enough now to where they make the playoffs regardless anymore. So they're going to be fine, and when you look at in the Nets now, I mean, Corey Crawford's been amazing here.
I'll tell you, and I did this interview with Tony Esposito a couple of weeks ago. I played part one, and one of the things I started the interview off saying to him was, and I'll admit this, when the Blackhawks signed Corey Crawford to a long-term contract a couple of years ago, and they gave him a good amount of money, I was shocked. I know he had just won a Stanley Cup, but as good as he played, his game was very erratic. He could make some amazing saves, and then 10 minutes later give up a goal that a 5-year-old could have stopped. And he always had that reputation of giving up the easy goal. And a lot of times that easy goal was a game winner. And so I was very surprised that they gave him that kind of commitment. And I'll have to say I was completely wrong. This guy has become, I don't know what he's done, especially this season, in his off season. And maybe he took that falling down the stairs injury a little seriously. But he obviously has improved his game immensely. And now, he doesn't get much respect around the league as a top goalie. But you have to say that he's having an incredible season this year, and he's carried the team through December.
Well, that's the thing. A good goalie or a hot goalie can cover up a lot of sins. And he has for some of the guys who've had off nights or whatever. If he's great in the net, well, then we're still going to take care of business. So, I think he's finally matured. I mean, I think Kaner, with all his craziness, I think he's finally now figured it out that it's time to, put
Well, what's so funny and what's so sad is that the Cubs or the Blackhawks win this cup and everybody is cup crazy, and then within a month or so, all that enthusiasm is completely dampened by the sexual allegations against him. And yes, he's been cleared of all charges, but it's still hovered over the team and over its fans well into this season.
Well, right, but and Kane, to his credit, although again, it spoiled a lot of the off season for me, and looking forward to this year too. But once the season started, he's gone to work, and he's been phenomenal. I
mean, he's had another. Yeah, him and Crawford have just been incredible. So hang on, Mark. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the Chicago sports in 2015, as well as some of the bigger stories nationally. And if you want to talk about anything sports-related, give us a call, 312-981-7200. Mark Vasko and me, Elton Jim Turano, will be back right after this. And we're back. I'm Elton Jim Turano here at WGN. And I'm visiting with Mark Vasko, talking about sports in 2015 and little look forward to 2016. I was playing the Bears fight song. We were talking about the successful seasons in 2015 of both the Chicago Blackhawks. You can't get much better than that, Stanley Cup, and the amazing improvement of the Cubs, not only winning the one playoff game in the wild card, but then defeating the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals, didn't they win over 100 games, Mark?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, didn't they have the most wins in baseball or no?
well, and everybody knows they have the best fans in baseball, too.
Oh, yeah, sure. But, the Cubs, then they knocked those guys down. Yeah, they didn't show up pretty much against the Mets. But as you said, Mark, as far as they went, anything was gravy.
Well, and Arrieta finally ran out of gas.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, they've added to their pitching staff. They've added to their bullpen. He's not going to have to throw the innings this coming season that he did last year, and I don't think he'll run out of gas in the next postseason.
Well, like I said, next year, this season, 2016, the Cubs definitely have to be a major favorite to go the one step further. And they remind me of the Bears in '84. If you remember, the Bears in '84, they went to the conference championship. I think they lost to San Francisco. And then the next year in '85, they won the Super Bowl. And I think that's the way the Cubs are. They weren't ready to win last year, and then they shouldn't have won. They were not a complete team. I think what they have so far, what they've done over the offseason, will make them a complete team, though.
Well, how would you like to face that lineup if you're a pitching staff?
I mean, it's crazy. If you've lived in this city, I mean, we've both been here our whole lives. It's crazy to talk about the Cubs with this kind of optimism, like legitimate.
Well, like you said,
not just like you drink the Kool-Aid, but this is real.
I mean, we lived through '69 and all. I mean,
remember the '70s with Jim Marshall as the manager? Oh my God, Davey Rosello, Dave Rosello.
Oh my goodness,
Jerry Morales. Holy smoke, George Mitterwald.
They get Addison Russell back, okay, who we didn't have in the playoffs.
Right, exactly.
This lineup is so good, he has to bat 7th.
I know, that's crazy. Well, I played the Bears fight song because I wanted to talk briefly about the Bears because, once again, I know they won against Tampa Bay, but, so they beat the biggest midget. Who cares? I know Bear fans love this team, and that, unfortunately, is the detriment because they keep going to those games, and this team does not need to be good to make money.
No.
And
no.
I think, when you look at the two we just talked about, the two most successful teams right now in Chicago are the Cubs and the Blackhawks. And what happened to both of those teams? A change of management, a change of ownership to some extent in both sides. I mean, it was still the Wirtz family, but a change of ownership and a change of management in that they brought in skilled, proven winner professionals to run the team. And the Bears almost did that when they brought in John Fox. But instead of bringing in an experienced GM, they went again with this, new guy. The only way the Bears succeed is they have to do what the Cubs did. They have to blow it up. Ted Phillips needs to go. The McCaskies will never go, but what they need to do is become silent owners, bring pros in. As I said to you before, you don't make your resume in Chicago. You bring your resume to Chicago. The Bears deserve to be one of the best teams in football. Their legacy goes back to the founding of the league. And the 6-8, 8-8, 9-7, 7-9. I'm so tired of that. And that was the whole Lovie Smith era. And here we go again.
Right. Well, but here's what it is. John Fox is Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
They're the same guy. So all they did was, I get it. I mean, it was time for Lovie to go. I mean, I get it. But then they took a step backwards, and now all they've done is rehire Lovie Smith and John Fox because they're the same coach. They're both good guys who run a professional organization. The players play hard for them. The players like them, but they're not good in-game coaches. They're the same guy. They both had trouble with clock management.
Yeah, definitely.
They both have trouble with in-game adjustments. It's the same guy. So all they've done is go backwards to go back to exactly where they were, 4 or 5 years ago.
We know, unfortunately, not only are the Bears run like a mom-and-pop organization, because they literally are a mom-and-pop organization.
Exactly.
And you know that the McCaskies, unless there is an amazing amount of money thrown at them, they won't sell that team. But the truth of the matter is, just because your grandfather or your father invented football doesn't mean that your genetics make you a professional football owner. And if you want to own the team, fine. But like I said, bring in real pros and stay away and let them do what they do. Rocky Wirtz brought in John McDonough and Jay Blunk and said, go be good. The same thing with the Cubs. Ricketts, after keeping Hendry around for a year, which was ridiculous.
Right.
I don't know what that was about. He finally wised up because he saw green seats empty in the stadium for the first time and said, wait a minute. He hired Theo Epstein and said, go bring your people in execute your plan and go do what you do. And I'm just going to sit back and give you the resources to do it. That's what an owner does. And that's what bugs me about with the Bears is that they keep plodding along and say, oh, well, wait a minute. The Bears won the Super Bowl with the McCaskies in charge. Yeah, but George Halas hired Mike Ditka. Mike McCaskey did not.
Absolutely.
So let's remember how the Bears got good. It was George Halas that made the key decision there, and unfortunately he died. But until the Bears really become a professional team and run it like that, they're going to continue to do this. And I know Bear fans, they love this team, and it's great to be that loyal, but you are really doing the team a disservice by your loyalty. And I know that football only has 16 games, and football is a family thing, and you have your family traditions with your nachos, and you wear your jerseys and all that stuff. I understand that. It's a one game a week. You get psyched up for it. You're tailgating. I get that. But if you don't, what happened? The Blackhawks fans stayed away in droves. There was times when there was 5,000 people in that stadium, and that's what forced the ownership when Bill Wirtz died to turn that place around. As I said, when Ricketts was seeing that there were empty seats in Wrigley Field for the first time, that's when they got serious. And as long as Bear fans continue to just support this team with these ridiculous... 3 weeks ago they were talking about the Bears being in the playoffs. Give me a break. That team does not... If they belong in the playoffs, get rid of the NFL. It's a terrible league.
Well, the worst thing is they have no competition. The Sox went out and improved themselves. They went out and signed Todd Frazier. They got Brett Laurie. They got two good catchers because they know they're competing with the Cubs.
Right. The Bears and the Bears own this team. And that the funny thing is, they're still living off that Super Bowl. I don't. Everybody says, when I talk about Lovey, because I think Lovey did more damage because Lovey created a culture that we accepted an average team, and that's not acceptable. And yes, I know he made the Super Bowl, but aside from the first play of the Super Bowl, the Bears did not belong in that Super Bowl.
Oh, no.
That Super Bowl is a footnote in the Bears' history.
It's a disaster.
So don't get me started. Well, do get me started.
Well, but see, and that's why, because Donald Trump ruined the NFL. If you saw that 30 for 30.
Yeah.
If we still had a USFL team, at least, we're never going to get a second NFL team, sadly. Even though we have 9 million people in Chicagoland, and we could certainly support a second NFL team. But even if, when we had at least another professional football team in town, there was some sort of competition for attention.
Yeah.
And ticket sales. There's no competition. They're the only show in town. You
know what, Mark? Can you hold on until after the news?
Absolutely.
And we'll just finish this up. Look, I do want to talk about some of the other bigger stories because you just got me started on the Bears. So hang on. Mark will be back with us after the news. But right now, this is Chicago's very own 720 WGN Chicago and WGNradio.com. And here's the news with Esmeralda Leon.
To go. American Pharaoh's got a 2-length lead. Frosted is all out at the 16th pole. And here it is. The 37-year wait is over. American Pharaoh is finally the one. American Pharaoh has won the Triple Crown.
And we're back here at WGN. I'm Elton Jim Turano filling in for Patty Vasquez tonight. And we are celebrating and talking about 2015, a rear view, and part of that is the sports year in review. And on the line is Mark Vasko. Hi, Mark.
Hey.
And I just played that little clip of American Pharaoh winning the Triple Crown. Are you a big horseman?
I'm not a big horseman. It's weird. I grew up in Palatine.
Yeah.
And literally 2 miles from the Ellington Park racetrack.
Oh, right, yeah. Definitely.
I never went.
Wow. I'll tell you, I'm not a big.
My dad wasn't a big racing fan.
Wow.
I mean, literally, I could have walked there, and I never saw a horse race there.
So you just swore at all the traffic. They're used to. Sadly, the traffic isn't as bad there anymore.
Exactly.
Boy, I'll tell you.
But I would watch the Triple Crown races every year.
Oh yeah, I mean, my dad loved the track. Used to take me there as a little kid. I was never a big bettor. I just love horses. I love watching horses. I love to ride. I don't ride. I'm not like some big horse rider, but whenever I go on vacation, I'll go, and if they have horseback riding, I just love horses, and I really enjoy watching them run. I like to go to the paddock and see them, and I love the excitement of the races. Sometimes I go to the horse races, I don't even bet. I just like to watch the races. But I remember going to the old Arlington before it burned down. And so like you, don't forget, when we grew up in the mid-'70s, there were 3 Triple Crown winners in the 70s.
Within 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, there was
within 5 years.
Yeah, there was Secretariat, Affirmed, and Seattle Slew, and
Right.
and there hadn't been a winner for like 30 or 40 years before that, and then there was all of a sudden this great rush of Triple Crown winners, and then we went almost 37 years without one.
Oh yeah, well the thing that hurt horse racing was the fact that back then there were 4 channels. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And there were hardly any sporting events on television.
Yeah, that's true.
The only baseball game was the Saturday afternoon game of the week, other than the Cubs or the Sox or whatever. But as far as the national stuff, and so you didn't have 8,000 sporting events a day on 200 channels. So every year, I was not a huge auto racing guy either, but I would watch the Indy 500 every year.
Yeah, because there was nothing else on Channel 7.
Well, right. It was an epic sporting event.
Yeah.
You didn't get to see a ton of sporting events, so you watched it. You watched all the big events. You watched all the Triple Crown races. You watched the Indy 500. You watched whatever boxing match or whatever was on when Muhammad Ali fought, because there weren't that many sporting events on TV. Like the NBA. Back then, the NBA finals were on tape delay. You know what I mean? It was
right.
It was a totally different deal.
Well, it was very cool to see finally this Triple Crown, because we over several years, a couple of years ago, there have been the horses that won the first 2 legs, and so there is something. It was kind of bittersweet, because now that someone did it, the next time it won't be as special, but that at the same time, you want it to get done every year, and it doesn't. So it was kind of like a push and pull, but it was cool to see that horse. Certainly was deserving. It wasn't like it was a fluke, or it wasn't a good horse. It went on to win the Breeders' Cup, so it was certainly American Pharoah was the class of its age group.
Well, and the other thing about the horse racing too is then they always retire.
Yeah, but it's not a bad deal. But don't forget, Mark, it's not a bad deal because they go to stud.
Well,
don't forget.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, when we retire, unless you got some Viagra, that's not the first thing. The first thing you do when you retire is you putter, or you go on a cruise. These guys are still, they're still doing some business. They're paid to do business. So that's not a bad retirement.
They should at least be able to come here downtown Chicago and be hired to take me around the city on a carriage ride or something.
I like the Triple Crown retirement plan. I'm digging that, because I don't see that happening around in my retirement plan.
No, I don't think either one of us.
I don't even see that happening now.
There's going to be a demand that really has been, never really will be. I understand.
I may have retired 15 years ago, as far as that's concerned. Hi-oh. But anyway. But no, I mean, so it was kind of cool to watch that. It was a great horse, and it was fun in the summer to have that little excitement, because it really does take you through most of the summer. It starts in May and gets done by in August or so. Yeah, no,
it builds the drama once you win the second race. Then absolutely.
Now, the one thing you're talking about, sports that have declined over the years, and that at one time were very popular, and this year, boxing has had such a decline. From, once again, I hate to sound like, in my day, we had boxing and we liked it. We loved it. We had Ali and Frazier and Norton and Hearns, and we loved them. We liked them. But now, Merriweather, what is that his name? I don't even know his name. There was a time when you were the heavyweight champion of the world. You were most likely always named Sportsman of the Year on Sports Illustrated, and you carried that crown. It was almost like royalty here in the United States. And now boxing, heavyweight boxing especially, is rarely even a blip. Nobody even cares, to the point where, how ironic is it that what is that Ultimate Fighting? That's actually more popular than normal boxing.
Well, agreed, killed that sport.
Yeah,
they made all the different belts.
Yeah,
there's 4 world champions.
They just could have added another hole. They didn't need to add a new belt.
Exactly.
You don't have to always buy a new belt. You just get a little ice pick and you make a new hole. And that's the problem.
That needs to be blown up and start over. That's boxing.
Yeah, but that Merriweather fight was a big deal. There might be a reunion, but that at least did put boxing for the first time in many years, on people's radar screen, because boxing has really taken a tremendous fall over the last 15, 20 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, I used to love watching Sugar Ray Leonard fight.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Sugar Ray. I was just talking about heavyweights, but yeah.
Right.
Sugar Ray, Roberto Duran.
He's my favorite boxer.
Yeah, remember Roberto Duran?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, all those great fights. Yeah. And they used to fight every couple of months.
Yeah, they did.
Well, now they fight twice a year.
I know.
How can you follow a boxer?
In my day, these boxers didn't just fight once every 2 years. They fought every 3 months. They got their clocks knocked out. They all got dementia, and we liked it. We loved it. Yeah. But talking about another thing, I got to get your take on this. I have just been so amused by the decline of Tiger Woods. In 2015, this could be the end of Tiger Woods. He had some major back surgery. He may not come back.
Oh, yeah.
This could have been the last that we've seen of him. And I'll tell you, everybody was, in awe of the spectacle that he had for 10 years when he really dominated the game. But, when he had those personal problems, do you golf at all?
Not as much as I used to, but oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who golfs knows that golf is 90% mental. It really is. You can have the greatest swing on earth, but if your head is not into that game, it doesn't matter. And you've seen pros crumble under the pressure. And I think that when he had that problem with his, and his whole personal life just exploded, and everybody, they were all taking shots at him. But, of course, in the sports media, they are all wanting him to come back because he was the most popular golfer, and he made golf cool. He made golf cool for the beat reporters who followed him, and he made money for the sponsors and all the things. But I think it's been an amazing thing to see how horrible he has played, and I think it is certainly his body is beaten up. And I think his head is gone, and there's no way he touches Jack Nicklaus's record. And I wouldn't be surprised. He just turned 40, I think, the other day. I wouldn't be surprised if he hangs it up.
It's a weird sport. It's like once you lose it, you don't get it back.
That's
David Duval. Duval was at the top of the sport. He lost it, and he's never been the same.
That is so true. Think about Duval comes to mind. That's a great example. And think about Greg Norman.
Well, right.
Greg Norman dominated the game, and then he just disappeared. Completely disappeared. And there's so many of those guys.
And I covered the Western Open every year for years. And still, one of my thrills to this day was I got to watch that group of fans swarm up the 18th green at the Western Open at Butler that one year. But it was very early in his career. And Tiger wins the Western, and I'm standing on the 18th green interviewing him.
Wow.
When he was at the height of it, and I was like, man, and I'm getting paid for this. This is like,
Oh, that's pretty cool. Once again, I'm not delighting in his decline because it's not fun to watch. It's like seeing Babe Ruth strike out, toward the end of his career. But the fact of the matter is that what I don't appreciate about Tiger Woods is that he really did perpetrate a huge fraud, and that is one thing that I don't forgive him for. He sold, every sports guy, unfortunately, not everyone, but my point is, hey, philandering and adultery, that stuff happens. I understand that. Sports figures are put up on a plateau. And so I'm not surprised that Tiger Woods succumbed to that. But what I didn't appreciate was he made millions of dollars on a clean-cut, family man image. And meanwhile, while he was taking millions of dollars from sponsors because of that image, he and a lot of people knew what he was doing was living a complete lie. And I really believe that was a huge fraud. And because of that, I stopped really liking him. It wasn't because of what he did, but if you're going to put yourself out there as a role model, and don't forget, when he was 22 or 23, he signed a $40 million contract with Nike at that time, which meant he never had to win another event in his life, and he was set for generations.
Oh, right. Oh, no. Hey, can I tell you a Western Open story?
Yeah, could you just hold on 1 second, and then we'll come back and you could tell your Western story. So hang on, folks, because how's that for a tease? Mark Vasko is going to tell us a Western Open story. I can hear everyone right now holding onto their radios, waiting for your Western Open story. So
it has a Cubs tie-in.
See, it's multi-sports. That's why you're on tonight, Mark. Hold on, we'll be back right after this. And welcome back to WGN. Elton, Jim, Turano with you here. Got Mark Vasko on the phone. We're talking sports here in 2015. And tell us your Western Open story, Mark.
Well, one of the sadder stories, obviously, especially if you're a Cubs fan, was the passing of Ernie Banks. And so this goes back. I'm covering the Western Open for another station down the dial, and I'm there every year, and I go into the clubhouse bar, and I look over, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, that's Ernie Banks. Now, he's my favorite Cub of all time. So I'm thinking, wow, there's Ernie.
There's Ernie, number 14.
He's sitting by himself. Well, that's crazy. It's Ernie Banks. It's my chance now to go over and say hi to Ernie Banks, which I've always wanted to do. So I go over and I pull up the chair next to him. I sit at the bar, and I introduce myself, and I say, hi, Ernie. And we start talking back and forth. But it always struck me like what a weird place. I never would have guessed that's where I would have met Ernie and talked to him. And, well, then he passes away, and all these stories come out about the real Ernie and how he was, kind of a loner and depressed, all these other things. You think, well, wow, he just went to the Western Open. I don't know, just to go and meet people or to get out of it. But it was just a weird thing to me.
Well, what's funny?
Sitting alone at the bar at the Western Open.
I have an Ernie Banks story, too, which plays into the fact that he really was a nice guy. I was dropping my wife off at O'Hare about 10 years ago or so, and I'm dropping her off at the departure thing, and I'm going to pull into the curb, and this big limousine pulls right in front of me and cuts me off and takes the spot. So I'm kind of, I mean, to the point where I had to really slam on the brakes. And I was, so I was kind of flustered for a second. And so then I'm like, oh, son of a bee, And I'm kind of cooling off and waiting for him to move so I can get into this spot. And all of a sudden there's a tapping on my driver's side window, and I roll it, and there's Ernie. It's Ernie Banks. And he goes, hi. I just wanted, and I knew it was Ernie Banks because he was wearing his baseball hat that said Ernie Banks on it. Remember?
Exactly.
He would wear that Mr. Cub hat all the time. But he goes, hey, man, I just wanted to make sure you were all right. He goes, I don't know why that driver cutting you off like that. And I was like, Ernie, I'll be honest with you. I was really mad. But you know what? Ernie Banks could cut me off anytime he wants. And he put his hand in the window and tapped me on the shoulder and walked away. And I was like, he didn't need to do that, to come over and just see if I'm okay and kind of apologize. So I thought it was very cool that he did that,
But I think he just wanted to talk to people. I think that's why he wore that hat. So people would know that, hey, it's Ernie, and they'd come up and talk to you.
Yeah, I don't think it was an ego thing of showing off. I think he just really liked people, and he liked to have a conversation. That's why he and Ronnie Woo Woo get along so well. You walk around the street with a Cub uniform on, Cub, Madden, and you get to talk to people. Did you see that Ronnie Woo Woo, talk about crazy stories in 2015, did you see that Ronnie Woo Woo was calling for Mayor Emanuel's resignation?
You know, why anybody gives him the time of day about any topic, I don't know, let alone that topic, but, you know, each his own.
And then, of course, to end our little segment here, and I appreciate you from sticking around, what has to be one of the bigger stories in sports as well as in pop culture is one of the prime examples of a superior athlete, a gold medal athlete, in the name of Bruce Jenner.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, completely, you know, for those of us who remember Bruce Jenner as an athlete as opposed to, you know, a part of that, you know, Kardashian mishigas there, this guy was, in 1976, the decathlon gold medal winner. I mean, that's 10, thus the name, you know, 10 of the most difficult sports in the Olympics, and this guy was the top athlete. And to have him not only come out and say, you know, and take on a new persona as Caitlyn, but to say that as a little kid he had these feelings. I mean, what a shocker that was.
Well, you aren't kidding. Well, the thing about Bruce Jenner that always got me was, and then he would go on the Battle of the Network Stars.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, on ABC, right.
He's a decathlon gold medal champion.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a ringer. You know, it's like, okay, you know, he's going to do the 100 meters against Gabe Kaplan.
Yeah.
You know, wait a minute.
Yeah, Howard Cosell beyond. And here we are in beautiful California. Tony Danza is going to attempt the 40-yard butterfly against Kathy Crosby and Jacqueline Smith of Charlie's Angels.
See, that's what we need. Of all the dumb reality shows,
that
back.
You know,
that one I would actually watch.
I don't know where I was on vacation last year in a hotel, and some station, I don't know if it was a local station or some kind of a, you know, weird cable station, but they were playing reruns of Battle of the Network Stars from the 70s.
Oh, I would absolutely watch that.
I think we were in Napa. I didn't want to leave. we're out. We're amongst these beautiful, you know, the beautiful weather, these beautiful, you know, vistas and the wine country, and I'm sitting there going, "Hey, wait a minute, you know, Scott Baio is going to do the obstacle course against Willie Ames." From Eight's Enough, I'm sticking around here. I mean, I can go get a glass of wine anywhere, but I want to see who wins this.
There's no question.
Of course, the young Ames from 8 is Enough, and the sturdy Baio from Happy Days. I mean, you had Howard Cosell literally, you know, selling his soul to the devil and making these competitions sound like they meant something. What a great show that was.
No, that was the greatest idea ever.
And I don't think you could do that again. Even if they tried to do that, it wouldn't be the same. There was an innocence to that. We never saw those people outside of their shows. And that's what made that show so interesting. It wasn't the competition. It was actually seeing, like you said, Gabe Kaplan in a pair of shorts.
Right.
You know, we didn't see that.
Julie from the Love Boat in the bicycle race around the track.
It's Gavin McLeod against Bernie Coppell. Love Boat versus Love Boat in the Simon Says competition.
And they took it seriously, and the captain of the team, they were talking strategy.
I mean, remember, was it, what was the guy from Baba Black Sheep? William Conrad.
Yeah, that's Conrad. Yeah,
well, I can't forget, not William Conrad. He was the fat guy. The other Conrad. He would take, you know, remember those commercials with the Ever-Ready battery on his and he took this so from Baba Black Sheep, the captain of NBC, has put up a formal request or a formal protest to the commissioner of Battle of the Network Stars. Of course, this time it is none other than Henry Winkler. Henry, how will you rule on this? I mean, it was ridiculous. But I couldn't stop watching it.
Oh, if that's on, I need to know what channel that's on if it's on.
Well, I have to say, 2015, as I said, as a year, we had a lot of bad news, but there were some very interesting sports stories, especially Chicago. We had a Stanley Cup, and we had the great improvement of the Cubs, and we look forward to both of those teams hopefully repeating that as we go on into 2016. Mark Vasko has helped me review 2015 in the sporting world. I appreciate you taking the time, Mark, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
As always.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, and right now it is 1:30, so we're going to go do some news with Esmeralda, not Esmeralda, Esmeralda Leon.